Hello and welcome to another episode of Damn Interesting Week. We are so glad you've decided to join us. My name is Jennifer Lee Noonan.
I'm Angela Epley.
I'm Spurr-Chen.
I'm Bradley Calhoun.
And this was a damn interesting week. So let's get started with our first link.
First link. Okay, from CNN Science. A fossil that was kept in a drawer for decades turns out to be the first ever Antarctica dinosaur bone.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's right. Check your drawers, y'all. You may have some linchpin overturning scientific thought. Just do it periodically. That way you won't miss anything. But yeah, a fossil that was sitting in a collection drawer for decades.
Oh, like in the back of a museum, they have drawers and drawers and drawers.
Right, a science drawer, not a person drawer.
We all have drawers waiting to be sorted. Just go through them regularly. You never know. I'm very adamant about this. It's a very Marie Kondo kind of thing. Turns out it was a vertebra, or a backbone. It was found in 1985 by a British Antarctic survey expedition. But when it was found, it was initially assessed as belonging to a large reptile, which, okay, yes.
I mean, a reptile in Antarctica is still a little wild.
It's true. But after multiple decades in storage, it was spotted by a Mark Evans, a paleontologist and manager of the geological collections. And he told CNN, quote, "I just needed to make sure it was what I thought it was." What it turned out to be was a fossil belonging to a titanosaur, a group of long-necked herbivores that includes the largest dinosaurs that ever lived. The largest known specimen was estimated to be about 37 meters long and weighed about 63.5 metric tons. However, this particular vertebrae, which measures around 10 centimeters, they're assessing that it belonged to a juvenile that would have been around 20 to 23 feet long. Study co-author Matthew C. Lamanna said in a statement, quote, "At first glance, this appears to be an unremarkable fossil, but it holds an important place in the history of Antarctic exploration as the first dinosaur fossil found on the continent." They're thinking the dinosaur it belonged to lived around 82 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period. And at the time this animal lived, we know Antarctica would have been covered in lush, temperate forest, providing ample food for large herbivores.
Yeah, this is extremely relevant to my first article in a minute, so I'm going to keep quiet.
We want to have a nice spin on what Barrett added here, which is, quote, "There are likely many more dinosaurs to be discovered on the continent. As climate change causes ice to retreat, we may indeed find further evidence of this past biodiversity." The research also advances our understanding of how dinosaurs moved across the southern continents, because during the Cretaceous period when this animal lived, Antarctica formed part of the supercontinent of Gondwana, and this new find shows that its close relatives traveled between South America and Australia via Antarctica, which is kind of wild. A lecturer in vertebrate paleontology at the University of Portsmouth, England, named Rory Smith, who was not involved in the research, said that the find is a wonderful reminder about the enduring scientific value of carefully curated museum collections, which continue to yield extraordinary discoveries decades after specimens are first collected. What's the reverse of throwing your colleague under the bus?
Yeah, I mean, is it carefully curated if it's in a drawer? It feels like he's very much throwing shade there, but like, if only someone had been paying attention, then...
You know, at least they kept it in a drawer,
right,
which might be part of the care instead of like, this is clearly junk and we're just going to put it on eBay, right? Next link?
Next link. This article comes to us from popsci.com. It's titled, "Before the Moon Race, Explorers Wanted to Conquer the Ocean."
Oh.
Yeah, so a little historical expose on what we did in the past in the Great Blue Unknown right here on Earth. So in 1916, 12-year-old Edwin Link Jr. sat in his father's workshop in Binghamton, New York, and drew a submarine. His father, who founded the Link Piano and Organ Company, probably disregarded the sketch as a young boy's fantasy. But after dropping out of high school in 1922, Ed Link followed his father into the family business, learning how bellows and pneumatic pressure, or the guts of organs, could be made to simulate movement. And by 1929, he used that knowledge to build the world's first flight simulator, a stubby box mounted on organ bellows that pitched and rolled like an aircraft in weather. By the end of World War II, more than 10,000 of his blue box simulators had trained 500,000 pilots. He sold the company in 1954 and returned to the sea, but not to support the war. Link spent the rest of his life trying to prove that people could not only explore the ocean depths, but dwell there. In the 1960s, it was a dazzling decade which looked as though the ocean might rival space as humanity's next great frontier. Astronauts circled the Earth, and aquanauts moved into seafloor labs.
This is very like Sea Lab 2020. Do y'all remember that cartoon?
Yes. I remember
never
Sea Lab
watched it.
2021.
Yes, rebooted as a very different cartoon. But it was from an original cartoon that was about people living in little domes under the ocean floor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this was absolutely an era that just like captured our imagination. And then, almost as quickly as we went into it, we just kind of left it behind.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out building that is super expensive, right?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to build under like hundreds and thousands of PSIs of pressure. So the engineering of underwater habitation, such as pressure vessels, life support, and decompression science, was advancing fast enough that underwater hotels, transit, and human presence in the shallow coastal ocean seemed not just possible, but imminent. And then America chose space. But even as moon landings and space shuttles and reusable rockets seized the headlines, Link, along with a stubborn handful of engineers, explorers, and dreamers, kept plumbing the ocean instead. By the middle of the 20th century, Swiss inventor and explorer Auguste Piccard proved that the technology used to explore space could also be used to access the deepest ocean recesses. In 1931, he ascended into the stratosphere in a pressurized balloon gondola of his own design. In a 1947 feature, Popular Science explained how Piccard had applied the principle in reverse, attaching a steel sphere to buoyancy tanks filled with gasoline lighter than water just as hydrogen is lighter than air. He called it a bathyscaphe, or a ship of the deep. Mm-hmm. In 1959, Walt Disney opened the submarine voyage at Disneyland. The subs never actually submerged, passengers simply sat below the lagoon's waterline, but the ride embodied a growing appetite for underwater tourism. Switzerland had a 1964 national expedition, and Jacques Piccard launched the Mesoscaphe, named for his father who had died 2 years earlier, into Lake Geneva. With a capacity of 45 passengers, the Mesoscaphe made more than 1,000 dives that summer, ferrying 33,000 ordinary people into the lake's depths. And while the Mesoscaphe and Disney's theme park ride encouraged underwater tourism, Edwin Link was busy working out what it would take to inhabit the ocean. In 1962, off the coast of France, he lowered diver Robert Stenuit in an inflatable chamber of his own design and kept him at 200 feet for more than 24 hours. In 1969, science writer Stephen Spencer described the Tektite program, an underwater habitat in the U.S. Virgin Islands jointly funded by the Department of the Interior, General Electric, and notably NASA. Spencer wrote, "For 60 days, the 4 ocean scientists of the U.S. Department of the Interior lived and swam on the bottom of Lameshur Bay off St. John. And though NASA did not use Tektite to train astronauts, the agency wanted to study how small crews handled long-duration isolation exactly as it would for future space missions." In July 1969, Apollo 11 landed on the moon. That same year, Sea Lab 3 was canceled after diver Barry Cannon died of carbon dioxide poisoning during a botched repair 600 feet down off California. In 1971, more than half a century after he'd sketched a submarine in his father's workshop, Edwin Link finally built his very own Nautilus. The Johnson Sea Link was a research submersible with a clear acrylic sphere that gave its pilot and observer a panoramic view of the deep. 2 years later, the Johnson Sea Link became entangled in cable 360 feet down on a wreck off Key West. Inside its diving chamber were Link's son Clayton and Coast Guard officer Albert Stover. For hours, Ed and his wife Marion waited aboard the surface ship as rescue efforts struggled against current and depth to recover them, and unfortunately both died of carbon dioxide poisoning, the same cause that had ended Sea Lab 3. After that, undersea experiments continued, but never again with the same scale and fervor as the 1960s, and with little support from NASA. In 2007, Popular Science profiled submarine designer Bruce Jones' plan for his Poseidon Undersea Resort, a 40-foot deep complex of individual suites with a library, wedding chapel, and restaurant. Nearly 2 decades later, Poseidon is still seeking investors.
Yeah, after the Titan submersible, I don't think he's going to get it.
Yeah, there's not a lot of appetite, at least from me. I'm like, wow, I can have my very own billionaire death sentence. So, in recent decades, it's mostly been enthusiasts and not nations funding most exploration of the planet's deepest places. In 2012, filmmaker James Cameron became the next person to reach it. Cameron's 2012 solo dive cost him approximately $8 million, roughly a third of the NOAA's entire annual ocean exploration budget that year. In 2013, NASA's space exploration budget outspent NOAA's ocean exploration program by more than 150 to 1. That's 3.8 billion to 23.7 million. And if America or the world had invested in exploring the ocean even a fraction more, we might understand far better than we do how the ocean we'd be vacationing in keeps our climate so hospitable.
And there's also, like, the military has done quite a lot. It's just not tourism. And frankly, at some point, the military is going to go, we don't want tourism down here. This is our space. So
yeah, that's the fish's land. We don't belong down there, you know?
Yeah, it is particularly naive for him to be like, if you vacationed down here, maybe you'd appreciate the beauty more. That's not what we do to places where we vacation. We destroy them faster. Like, frankly, we should stay out.
You'll see, like, the plastic water bottles just floating by your window that have been ejected from the trash stream of the hotel.
Right. The souvenirs, definitely a preservation method.
Oh, yeah. Next link.
Next link.
Okay, this comes from CBC. Cartoon villains with foreign accents drive language bias.
Yeah, okay.
We have to study it, though.
Yeah, we got to prove it.
When popular villains in cartoon shows and movies speak in foreign accents, the young children watching the conniving depictions also seem to pick up language biases. Recently, University of Toronto psychologist Elizabeth Johnson co-authored a study that analyzed more than 100 popular children's films and TV shows and revealed the negative impact of accents being used disproportionately to indicate sinister characteristics. We were the first to actually see... Oh, sorry. We were the first to actually see if kids internalize this, said Johnson. These biases first appear at the age of 3 in studies that we've done, and they grow stronger with age. The findings matter, Johnson said, given that associating certain accents with negative stereotypes can negatively impact people's lives. Implicit bias can also affect how someone is evaluated for a job or housing. Like, my dad's got a thick East Texan accent. Like, I know he had to be a better than average lawyer just to get past that accent.
But what about the Southern lawyer who's just a simple Southern
Well,
lawyer?
yeah, just a simple Southern lawyer going up to New York City.
Yeah, put him in front of the right jury, it's a strength. But put him in front of the wrong jury and you're done.
Absolutely. In the first part of the study, researchers had 95 children across the Greater Toronto area, aged 7 to 9, and their parents compile a list of their favorite animated films and TV shows. What they found is that in both the children's and parents' favorites, non-standard accents were underrepresented, and when they did appear, they tended to be used for a villainous role or a character with a negative trait. Next, Johnson played video clips of the same actor using different accents and asked the participants which voice they preferred for a hero and which voice they preferred for a villain. Both kids and parents were more likely to choose foreign accents for scoundrels. In the final part of the investigation, the researchers repeated the second experiment with 2 groups of kids, those around 5 years old and those around 13. Children's language biases seem to increase with age, with the older children more likely to associate foreign accents with villains. It's pretty suggestive evidence, Johnson said, though she was quick to acknowledge the findings are simply correlations.
Yeah, I mean, there is an element of, like, this is hardwired into us, someone who is not like us in any way, whether it's visual or auditory or anything. But there is an argument to be made of, oh, maybe our media should push against that, or maybe it should present other options as opposed to leaning in even harder.
Yeah, even if it's a correlation, the fact that it's persistent generationally is, that's
Yeah, it's not great.
Well, and you bring up a point that I'll kind of bring up a little bit later, but exposure might matter, right? So one aim of Johnson's ongoing research into accents is to have kids watch more positive portrayals of accents that can make a difference. She pointed to shows like Aquanauts and Peppa Pig. Fortunately, I don't have kids, so I don't have to watch either one of those.
Well, to be fair, Peppa Pig is just a foreign cartoon. They're just importing it over here. So they're like, yeah, everybody's got an accent. But it's not like they went out of their way to say, let's put a variety of accents in this show. They just brought it over from another country and said the kids will deal with it.
Actually, in the case of the Octonauts, I think it does use multiple accents, right?
Oh, it might. I've never seen that one. I'm just talking about Peppa Pig.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. I think Aquanauts, she says Aquanauts is fabulous. They have such great representation. Janet Worker, a University of British Columbia psychology professor who's not involved in cartoon study, her lab focuses on infant speech perception in monolingual, bilingual, and multilingual babies. She discovered that by 11 months of age, babies in Vancouver have specific expectations about who is going to speak in what language. An English monolingual learning baby will expect an East Asian face to speak either English or Cantonese, but will not expect them to speak Spanish.
Right.
There's been some work done that shows babies will be more likely to take a toy from somebody who speaks their own language. So there's just more comfort and trust there. But again, exposure. Maybe having children play together with a friend or parent present during the interaction could help build familiarity.
Yeah, I mean, the other side of that coin is both with Peppa Pig and there was an earlier juggernaut, Charlie and Lola, which was a British cartoon that came over here. One of the things that parents talked about was my kids have started to speak with the accent of the show because the kids like the show and they identify with it, so they start imitating it. And you see the same thing where if you have two parents with a distinct accent, but the children are raised in a country where all of their peers speak with a different accent, the children very rarely keep their parents' accent. They speak with the accent of their peers. And so, it's really hard to make a baby diverse because babies are little pattern matching machines. That's what they do.
Well, give them better patterns, by gosh.
Well, sure. I mean, you can keep them as neutral as possible. That's, I think, the best you can hope for.
Yeah. To your point, Johnson said she expected children growing up in more homogenous environments would show bias, but she was shocked to find that was also the case in Toronto, where in 2021, nearly half of the residents spoke a language other than English or French at home. This is a direct quote from her. I didn't think kids in the GTA would have these biases because I thought they were exposed to so much more language variation. I thought that the biases were really more of an American thing.
No.
Who's got some biases there? And have you been to Houston?
And like you said earlier, even within America, we've got biases. Like a Southern accent is absolutely shorthand for this person is dumb. And a New York accent is shorthand for this person is aggressive and dangerous. Like we do it to ourselves, too.
So how do we stop that? We all start speaking very mono.
Right.
No.
No accent for anyone.
All the diversity. That'll eventually neutralize things, but not in a flat way. But...
Yeah, so if we just have our kids keep watching those digital shorts with the AI language, they'll all start sounding like that person.
Cool.
Hey, guys.
That sounds great.
Next link.
Next link.
All right. Well, as promised, we're going back to Antarctica. This is from The Conversation, called Why Antarctica Froze Millions of Years Before the Arctic. So, as the title indicates, we've known for a long time that the Antarctic first became covered in ice around 34 million years ago, during a period known as the Eocene-Oligocene transition. And we know that the Arctic at the North Pole remained largely ice-free for another 25 million years after that, which didn't make a lot of sense. Because the most obvious theory for why Antarctica froze in the first place was the plummeting CO2 levels in the atmosphere, which hit their peak around 50 million years ago at 1,600 parts per million and dropped to a low of about 200 parts per million in the modern era. And to be clear, yes, we are still very much at the bottom of that trough, relatively speaking. The CO2 increases that we're seeing today when we talk about climate change are very small in comparison to a global timescale, but it's important to remember that on that same global timescale, we're talking about the entirety of Antarctica melting, which, if it did so, it would raise global sea levels by more than 150 feet. And I couldn't even find a visualizer that would show what the coastlines would look like at 150 feet of sea level rise, The most extreme one I could find was 10 feet of sea level rise, at which point the entire city of Miami is underwater. Anyway, the point is the CO2 levels were coming down, the Earth was cooling, but if this global temperature drop was the reason that the Antarctic froze, then the Arctic should have frozen at the same time, and it definitely didn't. What's more, the sea surface temperature of the Southern Ocean, which is right off the coast of Antarctica, remained unexpectedly warm for about 10 million years after the East Antarctic ice sheet had already started to form. So it couldn't have even been some weird difference between the North and South poles. Like, the Antarctic's over here just freezing solid in the middle of a warm ocean for no reason. But now, thanks to a new collaborative study between researchers in the UK and Germany, we might finally have that reason. And it has to do with the original formation of the land underneath the ice. So about 170 million years ago, Antarctica and Africa were still joined together as part of a supercontinent we now know as Gondwana. And they've got a little video in the article showing the continental migration over time, where you can see the land that's going to become Antarctica splits off and starts moving downward, while the larger bit of Gondwana rotates up and to the left and ultimately splits into Africa and South America. And as we now know, that's how the dinosaurs got on there, because it used to be warm and then it went south and got cold. And when two chunks of land make a split like that, it causes massive ripples in the liquid mantle beneath them. And these mantle waves can travel outward more than 1,000 kilometers from their source over very long periods of time, and they basically cause the continents above them to sort of bob along like a boat on the water, but on a geologic timescale. And so what this new study has shown is that this bobbing can occur for much longer and travel much farther away from the split than we originally thought. Through complex computer modeling, they have shown that over the course of 100 million years, the elevation of Antarctica would have risen in a mountainous wave from its coastline all the way to the Gamburtsev Mountains, which are over 1,500 kilometers inland. And elevation matters tremendously when you're talking about ice, because for every 100 meters of elevation gained, the air temperature drops by about 1 degree Celsius. And according to the model, this uplifting wave would have raised the Gamburtsev Mountains by about 500 meters. So this absolutely would have been enough of a difference for ice to start forming on the mountain peaks. And by the time the wave eventually passed and the mountains came down again to their current elevation, global CO2 levels would have finished dropping enough that both the Arctic and the Antarctic could now stay frozen. Which is all very fascinating from a global perspective, but it actually has ramifications for us now as well. Because when the ice sheets first started forming in the Antarctic, they helped accelerate the CO2 drop that was already happening. To start with, ice and snow reflect more sunlight than bare rock, so every additional bit of ice created a feedback loop that cooled the planet even faster. On top of that, as the air directly over the Antarctic cooled, it would have held less water vapor, which is a greenhouse gas, so this too would have contributed to the overall cooling of the planet. And so we know that losing that ice will create a feedback loop in the opposite direction. The more it melts, the faster it's going to melt. But also, the mantle wave from 170 million years ago is done. Antarctica is not going to rise up to those higher elevations that kicked off this process anytime soon. So to whatever degree we lose that Antarctic ice, it's going to be that much harder to get it back because we won't have elevation helping us out this time around. That being said, it's only 500 meters. We can definitely build things that tall. So, maybe what we're looking at is a sort of Ewok future where we're all living in these connected structures a mile above the surface. Like, it's desert at the bottom, but we're on that Mount Everest air up top, and it's fine.
Or it's the new Hollywood movie where they have to hire some teacher, pull him out of retirement, can figure out how to ripple the magma again.
Oh, like a wave machine at a water park.
Or an underground rave with amazing speakers.
There you go.
Don't put that in because I'm going to pitch that to Hollywood. I don't want anybody to steal that.
Yeah. Part of it will be blasting out the eardrums of the whales, but you'll be like, it's fine because it's
fine.
Tourism, y'all. We're having lava tourism now, and we're going to go down there. Next link.
Next link. Okay, from the MIT Technology Review. Newsflash. AI agents are not your coworkers.
What?
And marketing agents as digital employees may make human workers worse at spotting errors and more likely to offload accountability. Who knew?
Right.
Emma Wiles, a Boston University business professor, she found that people caught 18% fewer errors when the work was said to have come from an agentic AI employee rather than a chatbot. because it turns out what you are calling this matters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's partially because, according to Weil's research, it inverts our sense of who's in charge. So if an AI tool was framed as an employee, participants in the study saw themselves as less responsible for its output. That's so-and-so's job, right? They were also 44% more likely to escalate its questionable work to a manager for further review rather than trusting their own corrections, thereby negating the time-saving purpose of using the AI agent in the first place. And this matters well beyond just normal office culture, because AI agents are embedded into healthcare, warfare, education, government. So there's a growing risk they'll become a convenient place to dump blame for failures that are instead the product of bad human decisions, incentives, and oversight. The actual example that MIT Tech Review uses is that bomb strike on a girls' school in Iran that was popularly blamed on Claude, where actually all signs pointed to a cascade of human errors. So AI agents right now, they're being marketed as things that can replace humans, and that's just a losing proposition, according to Darren Asimoglu at MIT, who won the Nobel Prize in 2024 and who studies AI's impact on the economy. Quote, they should instead be optimized so they can improve human capabilities, which is not what they have been at the moment. So what could that look like? Well, there's been a new effort at Stanford where researchers presented 1,500 workers across 104 jobs with information about what tasks AI could potentially do in their work, and then asked about what would actually be most helpful and productive. And it turns out workers did want automation in certain areas. For example, law clerks thought AI could help ensure that adequate progress was being made across cases. But often the tasks that tech experts deemed most suitable for AI, like verifying customer credit ratings for sales reps, those were what the actual workers said they definitely did not want or need an agent to do.
I mean, it's just so frustrating because these tools are genuinely extremely useful for rote tasks that I feel no human should ever have to do again, ever in the history of humanity. But we don't use them for that. And like, if you're just like, hey, coworker, go do it, like it's going to do a 60 to 70% job. And there are models, you know, the new Fable Mythos model now can probably do 95% of everything an intern could at like 5 to 10 times the cost. So, you know,
But I think the important thing that you're saying here is that an intern is already a truncated, like, scoped level of responsibility and accountability. You're not saying like a fully fledged senior person or worker like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and an intern is free. I mean, you're supposed to pay them.
Right. In the right company, an intern pays you. Next link. Next link.
This article comes to us from The Conversation, and I'm sticking with the water theme. It's titled, Seaweeds Are Not Plants, and 6 Other Surprising Facts About Aquatic Flora. Yeah, so this is, you know, just in list form, some interesting facts for you. So number 1, plants can't stop returning to water. Around 500 million years ago, plants moved from water onto land, and since then, many have moved back. Scientists estimate that the aquatic lifestyle has evolved independently more than 100 times across different plant groups. Water lilies float their leaves on the surface, duckweeds drift freely, and seagrasses live entirely submerged in the ocean. Some of these groups made their return over 100 million years ago, and the repeated evolution of aquatic plants is one of nature's most striking examples of convergent evolution. Number 2, the plants that aren't plants. Some of the most conspicuous organisms beneath the waves are seaweeds. They photosynthesize and often resemble underwater plants. Yet, despite their appearance, seaweeds are not true plants. They belong to several distinct lineages of algae found across the evolutionary tree of life. The giant kelps that form underwater forests are brown algae. Nori and dulse are red algae, while sea lettuce belongs to the green algae.
Yeah, I guess I'm the schmuck. I just assumed algae was a plant, but I guess you'll tell me why they're not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's theoretically different. It doesn't go too deep into the details here, but I believe algae is like kind of, I don't think it's like mold exactly, but just on vibes, you know, it's like mold plants. I don't know.
It's halfway between between a mold and a plant. It's different.
Exactly. Science. So, unlike plants, they lack true roots, stems, and leaves. Okay, those are the key differences, yes. And they do not produce flowers or seeds. However, their plant-like appearance is a reminder that evolution can produce similar forms in very different groups of organisms when they face similar environmental challenges. Number 3, great depths. So plants need sunlight to photosynthesize, which usually limits them to land or shallow water. But some aquatic mosses survive at astonishing depths. Neef's hook moss, or Drepanocladus aduncus, has been recorded at 140 meters below the surface in exceptionally clear waters of Crater Lake, Oregon. This makes it the deepest known underwater plant, which also grows on land, surviving at a depth greater than the height of the London Eye. Deep-water mosses have also been recorded in lakes in New Zealand, Antarctica, and elsewhere, so deep these environments are effectively pitch black. Number 4, rootlessness. Roots are one of the defining features of plants, anchoring them in the ground and absorbing water and nutrients from the soil. Yet many aquatic plants have reduced their roots dramatically, and some have seemingly lost them altogether. Water and dissolved nutrients surround the plant, making extensive root systems less important than they are on land. Members of the genus Wolffia, the world's smallest flowering plants, have no roots at all, floating freely on the water's surface. And there's a great photo of them and of a hand just dipped into it. And it really just looks like, well, the caption calls it green caviar. And that's exactly what it looks like. And it's called that apparently for its nutritional qualities.
Ooh.
Number 5, underwater carnivores. So not all aquatic plants rely on sunlight and dissolved nutrients. Some supplement their diet by capturing and digesting animals. The most spectacular examples are the bladderworts, or Utricularia, a group of rootless aquatic plants found in freshwater habitats around the world. Their leaves are modified into tiny bladder-like traps that create a vacuum by pumping water out of the chamber. When a small animal brushes against trigger hairs near the trap entrance, a door springs open and the prey is sucked inside in less than a millisecond. This makes bladderwort traps among the fastest movements in the plant kingdom. While they usually capture tiny aquatic invertebrates, fish larvae and tadpoles have occasionally been recorded as prey. Number 6, pollination by current. Instead of relying on insects or wind, many aquatic plants such as the seagrasses have turned water itself into their personal matchmaker, allowing the water's currents to drift pollen directly to its destination. To attract pollinators, land plants routinely release airborne perfumes, but beneath the water's surface, these traditional gas signals don't work effectively. Underwater pioneers like seagrasses have lost the genes responsible for producing these airborne scents. Number 7, seagrasses and mangroves are major carbon sinks. They store what scientists call blue carbon, carbon trapped in coastal ecosystems that can remain locked away for centuries or even millennia. These ecosystems, including seagrass meadows and mangroves, store 11.5 billion tons of carbon worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah, major share. And whether they're trapping prey in milliseconds, growing in near darkness, or storing carbon for centuries, aquatic plants truly demonstrate the remarkable versatility of life.
Yeah, I don't like the carnivorous ones. That just gives me the image in my head of I'm swimming along and a piece of seaweed grabs my leg and jerks me under.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Again, Hollywood, we got another movie for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Little shop of underwater horrors.
Yeah. If it makes you feel better, they really are very tiny. I mean,
Yeah.
it could capture some hair.
Yeah, or, small enough to enter a pore.
Right,
Why
eat you
worry?
from the inside out. There
That's
you go.
right, that's right.
And from last week, remember, we still have like 6 nuclear warheads somewhere in the ocean. So they could be
Yeah.
right next to one of those, and it's getting big.
Godzilla bladderwort.
All right, well, that is all we have time for today. We're so glad you've joined us. Some of the articles we did not have time to get to today include colorful songbirds face higher risk of extinction, how America reinvented English, and the botched train robbery that changed American forensics. So all that and more, plus everything we talked about today, can be found on damninteresting.com. If you like our podcast and want to support us, you can do so at patreon.com/damninterestingweek. In the meantime, my name is Jennifer Lee Noonan.
I'm Angela Epley.
I'm Spurr-Chen.
I'm Bradley Calhoun.
And we hope you have a damn interesting week. Bye-bye.